Ah, episode 10 already? It feels like just yesterday that we started this little adventure. I've always been fascinated by how time seems to speed up the older we get. Is that because there's simply more packed into each day as responsibilities and priorities multiply? Or does our perception really change as the years accumulate? In any case, I'm thrilled to spend another hour rambling with all you fine listeners out there. As always, I come to you without an agenda. Just a swirl of thoughts, observations, and curiosities percolating in this gray matter of mine. Perhaps we'll touch on current events or spin some yarns from days gone by. Maybe we'll ponder life's mysteries or get lost down a philosophical rabbit hole. Who knows where the winding path of conversation may lead us? I find that's the real beauty of this format, the organic unfolding from one subject to another, connections being made, or not, between seemingly disparate topics. It's a bit like a song with multiple verses, without necessarily repeating the same chorus. There's freedom in its lack of structure, which allows for serendipitous discoveries along the way. So without further ado, let me launch off from something that's been floating around my periphery lately. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, it seems we're currently in the midst of a collective fascination with all things related to space exploration and the final frontier. From billionaires launching satellites and civilian missions, to government agencies mapping new phases of Mars exploration, to the ever-growing popularity of space-themed movies, shows, and books. It appears our gaze has turned resolutely skyward once more. I suppose it's only natural that periods of turmoil or uncertainty on Earth coincide with renewed interest in what lies beyond. The unknown vastness above offers both escape and opportunity. The frontier spirit stirs within us. There's also no shortage of wonder inherent in peering out into the cosmos and pondering our place within its infinite expanse. It raises timeless questions about humanity, life's purpose, what other worlds might harbor, and of course, whether we might one day encounter intelligent beings elsewhere in the universe. Food for thought for scientists and storytellers alike. I was looking through some pictures taken by the Hubble Space Telescope recently, marveling at the kaleidoscopic beauty found even in what appear as anonymously clustered stars and nebulous clouds of dust and gaslight, years away. There are shapes and patterns that evoke everything from floral blooms to whimsical sea creatures, all glowing with the energy of aeons past. It strikes me that the universe itself may be the greatest artist of all, though on an incomprehensibly vast scale, far beyond our human conception. Its palette consists of fundamental forces and quantities like gravity, electromagnetic radiation, and various elemental forms endlessly recombining. Through this lens, one could argue all of visible creation is a work of cosmic art, a continuing intergalactic symphony played out across the expanses of space and corridors of time. We are but minute musicians along for the ride, catching glimpses of the grandeur from our humble seats. I find moments of perceiving reality this way to be profoundly stirring, placing our fleeting lives into a temporal and existential context, both magnified and diminished all at once. Where was I? Ah, yes, pondering the universe as the greatest artistic endeavor of all. As I gaze heavenward on a clear night, seeing our small planet set against the starry void, I'm often struck by a feeling both of insignificance and significance. Insignificance in recognizing our infinitesimal scale against the observable cosmos. A closed-loop voyage traveling at the speed of light could hardly span even a single galaxy within a human lifetime. Yet significance in the realization that the stardust permeating that same cosmos ultimately gave rise to thinking, perceiving beings who can marvel at its wonders. We are the eyes and minds through which this incomprehensibly vast system has become aware of itself. A humble but integral role, wouldn't you say? This dual perspective, which sees both our smallness and importance, has stuck with me through the years. I find it a useful counterbalance to the hubris as well as despair that so easily seduce humankind. On the one hand, It reminds us not to presume ourselves lords of dominion over a creation so much greater than our grasp. On the other, it underscores our dignity and responsibility as thoughtful shepherds of this tiny blue world we call home, one of untold trillions, adrift in the ocean of space, but the only known living sphere within our local stellar neighborhood all the same. A balance of humility and purpose, extending compassion to both our fellow inhabitants and the planet itself, which birthed and sustains us. Perhaps this can also cultivate more open-mindedness and fellowship between peoples. From far above the fray of petty conflicts and divisions, national, ethnic, or ideological boundaries cease to have much meaning. We see instead our shared residence upon this fragile third rock orbiting an average-sized yellow star toward the outer edge of the Milky Way. At that vantage, are not our common hopes and struggles more salient than those things which sometimes tear us apart? I believe embracing this overview perspective, as the astronaut Rusty Schweikart aptly called it, could foster greater cooperation in solving global challenges. These are just some thoughts sparked by considering our circumstances and relationship to the enveloping universe. I find the contemplation itself soothing in reassuring me of scales beyond those narrow frames so prone to create fear, anger, or impatience. By contrast, such a long-range lens lends a certain calm, as if eavesdropping on the easy, timeless rhythms of nature from some remove, which I suppose, in a way, we are. What are your own thoughts on perspective, humankind's situation, and how gazing heavenward might shape one's outlook here below? Of course. I do seem to get carried away sometimes, meandering down my winding associative paths. My producer is always reminding me to rein it in and leave room for listener response. After all, this is meant to be a two-way conversation. Where was I before diving down that cosmic rabbit hole? Ah, yes, musing on the renewal of interest in space exploration visible all around us. As much as I delight in dreaming outward toward planets and nebulae, we'd be remiss not to also consider the very tangible benefits of such endeavors here on Earth. Scientific and technological progress has consistently flowed from pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve beyond our world. Satellite networks, water purification systems, air purifiers, lightweight materials, the spillover applications from the challenges of spaceflight have undoubtedly improved countless lives. Even on a basic resource level, asteroids and beyond contain riches that may one day aid humanity. From precious metals to building materials, the sheer abundance floating around out there could foster sustainability if properly harvested. And let's not forget the economic opportunities in tourism, transport, manufacturing. Whole new industries are sure to emerge. The innovations sparked by daring to reach for the stars could revitalize communities for generations to come. With brave pioneers testing new modes like space ballooning, orbital habitats, and solar sails, we inch closer to viable solutions for space-based industry, science labs, and maybe one day settlements free from geopolitical borders. One has to admire the visionaries out there determined to seed humanity's future among the stars instead of waiting idly for an inevitable planetary catastrophe. Their optimism and effort could safeguard our civilization globally. At the same time, any technological might comes with responsibility. As scale tips more toward commercialization and militarization of orbit, prudent policy will be needed to maintain space as inclusive scientific commons for all people. Regulations preventing pollution, collisions, and unchecked proliferation of constellations seem wise to uphold the integrity of that research frontier. Overall, a balanced, collaborative approach stands the best chance of cultivating space fruitfully and for the long-term benefit of humankind as a whole. Shall we tack our discursive vessel elsewhere on the shifting winds? I've had poetry dancing around my thoughts of late, inspired perhaps by all that lyrical language describing celestial wonders. The poetic form appeals in distilling grandeur into an essence that lingers long after, capturing a moment perfectly while leaving much unsaid. I was recalling one of my favorite poems the other day, by the Persian Sufi mystic Rumi. In spare and resonant words, It speaks to seasonality's sway while hinting at deeper truths. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. Always loved how that little glimpse awakens curiosity without preaching a single interpretation. Like the breeze itself, meaning remains gentle and suggestion, leaving interpretation to each reader's context and insight. A perfect microcosm, in my view, of the poetic craft. This led me thinking how poetry and music might complement each other to spark new levels of awareness. Have any of you ever experienced certain lyrics or melodies unexpectedly unlocking understanding or healing? Sometimes an alchemy occurs between apt turns of phrase and the right notes, chords, or timbre, wherein profound resonance is struck in the soul of the listener. Something shifts subtly inside, and a new road forward may open where none seemed viable before. The creative can move us beyond reason into felt intuition, and from there, who knows where insight may lead. Creativity across all domains helps nurture flexibility and perspectives, doesn't it? Through imagination, we glimpse unforeseen connections, reframe challenges as opportunities, keep wonder alive where pragmatism might dwell. This flexibility of thought feels so important now, as societies confront complex problems demanding nuanced, multi-layered solutions, rather than reactions stuck upon well-worn gears. When did narrow become the norm, I wonder? Might we rediscover how to think in spectra instead of extremes again? Perhaps the arts can lead there through their very nature of embracing ambiguity. Well, now, where were we drifting in conversation before the sands of time once more sifted through the metaphorical hourglass? Creativity and perspective, if memory serves. Though my mind is wont to wander as the winds blow this talk in new directions. Perspective is such a shifty thing, isn't it? Altered by the lens through which we view our existence at any given interval along life's continuum. I've found mine morphing subtly with each cycle round the sun, as experiences weather away former edges to reveal new contours beneath. And so we change, hopefully growing ever closer to embracing the whole while outgrowing false limits once imposed. Such is the natural evolution, I think, where openness meets occurrence over prolonged exposure. A body of work bearing evidence to this metamorphosis spans the arts, though perhaps nowhere more poignantly than in writing, where the author's journey may be tracked back through their shifts in style and preoccupations across pieces drafted over years. I'm reminded of an author who initially published whimsical short stories before transitioning to more introspective, psychologically intricate novels as personal struggles intensified their creativity. What began playful transformed searching as perspective deepened, yet traces of their origins remained, like bedrock foundations shaping new structures raised upon the skeleton. Isn't it comforting in a way, how deeply our earliest influences remain imprinted? I find solace knowing the inquisitive child within need never fully surrender to life's compulsions of so-called maturity. Their innocence and irreverence can live on in subtle form, leavening what might calcify were we not vigilant. This balance, perhaps, enables continued evolution, honoring where we've come from while never ceasing to become. A rooted flexibility as the seasons. I wonder, too, if in periods ahead, looking back upon this present phase, its defining qualities will be clearer. When do we gain sufficient remove to discern an era's overlapping narratives and fault lines? Its gravitational pull shapes experiences lived within its bounds, yet those bounds are imperceptible as we traverse the terrain. Only later may patterns emerge. Collective shadows come into definition against the light of what follows in history's continuous unfolding. For now, we inhabit its uncertainties together and must do our best navigating by whatever illumination shines down while night persists. But I wax too philosophical. In truth, I feel this ramble has gone sprawling far beyond any planned perimeter. And yet, is that not the joy of such form? Where it leads is mystery along for the finding. And so here we are once more, coming full circle as conversations are wont to do. I do hope you've enjoyed yet another aimless, poetic drift through discursive terrain. It does this old podcaster's heart good to share the pleasant company, though time grows short, as it ever must, before signing off into the still of evening. In reflecting on our dialogues past and present, a few recurring currents come into clearer focus. Flexibility of thought and openness to evolution seem integral to navigating change with grace. Embracing life's ambiguity while finding solace in continuity holds promise too, and how the creative spirit may buoy our shared voyage towards greater understanding between travelers of this world. Humble gratitude fills me, knowing others enjoy these rambles as casual respite from daily toil and travail. To spark new questions and associations, however slight, that is reward enough for this wanderer. May the seeds sown born unforeseen blossoms for listeners in days to come. For now, let appreciation linger in the lingering light, and fond farewells till future conversations call us again to join beneath the stars. Wherever your next steps may lead, I wish for you smooth paths, kindness found along the way, and insights that nourish both heart and mind. Till next we speak, dear friends, fair winds and following seas. This podcast is adjourned.